This is the Growing a Little Wiser show, brought to you by Joshua DeLeon. This episode is powered by Ferocious Productions.
You already rolling?
Yeah, it's already
Okay,
rolling.
cool, cool.
Well, first I want to say thank you for having me here.
Absolutely, man. Appreciate it.
It's really like the first time that I got to look at your studio, and when when I get the chance to like see greatness, I try to soak it in because I know it takes a lot for people to get to this point.
Humble, man.
And
Thank you.
now it's like I know it's really not my genre or my field of things that I want to do,
All right.
but just to see greatness is like it's inspiring to even it's inspiring to even know about it and get to know you personally, and it makes me want to go harder at what I want to do in life.
Thank you, brother. I appreciate you, man.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And when it comes, I know we said we had a little talk about it, and I DM you actually about, you had a great story about how you came up with this. How did that process start for you? Was it always like as a youngin, like you always wanted to be an engineer? It's all about music.
I first I first started doing music at probably like age 13.
Yeah.
So it was always a thing. I come from a musical background. I have producers in my family. So my older cousin Kevin Richardson. When I was coming up, when I was around 11, I used to start. I get with him and start going to first his home studio, and then
Yeah.
he started taking me to like a big studio where he was doing work with artists and stuff. So that was kind of like my first time being in a major studio. So I
Yeah.
was inspired from that point. So he took me under his wing and he kind of showed me the ins and out of production. So I started off as a producer. So I'm an engineer by trade, secondly, but my first thing is production. But to me, it's all kind of one thing. So engineering, producing, writing, I look at it as just
Right.
one
Right.
thing.
Right. So with the process of that, is there any time to where you said you started with it when you was 13? And if you don't mind me asking, how old are you now?
I'll be 41 in a couple days.
No, you're not.
Absolutely.
No, you're not.
Yes, sir.
So within that time frame from 13 to how old you're about to be,
Yeah.
was there any process to where it's like you question yourself, like, dang, am I ever gonna own my own studio?
So Um, I wouldn't say that that was the question. The question was more so like, am I making the right decisions? Am I in the right field?
Mm,
But I say like, just the passion that I have for it was like the reassurance. So even when stuff got super hard or super stressful, like
right.
that's the one thing that I held on to. Like I'm not. I don't think I'm as passionate about music, or I don't think I'm passionate about anything else as I am about music. Like it's
Mm,
it's the one thing I feel like I'm great at.
right. Right.
I
And
can't play sports. I was a band geek.
man,
Yeah, so music is like it's one thing that I'm like, okay, I'm good at this.
okay. And you said something about, am I in the right field?
Right.
Were there any like other options for you? Like,
Yeah. So my first dream job, I wanted to be a cartoonist for Disney.
yeah, you
Yeah.
can
So
draw.
yeah, I was real heavy in the art in
Okay.
elementary. Won a lot of contests, a lot of school wide stuff. So that was my first passion, drawing. But um, as I got older, what I realized once I started meeting a lot of more artistic people, I noticed a common thing that they could draw.
Mm-hmm.
So for me, I think that what inspired me about art, it was just the fact of putting things together.
Right.
So that's really my main passion, and that
Right.
can be
Right.
whether it's music, videography, the arts. I just like, uh, I guess, reverse engineering and seeing how things are put together.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so I'm super passionate about that.
I can see how that go together because I'm an artist myself. I used to draw. I used to paint a lot.
Yeah, yeah,
I'm more of the abstract thing, and to me, everything connects. Like if I can draw, if I can paint, I feel like I'm not into music a lot. Like I don't. I tried to make my own beats before, but it was like MIDI-core was trash. But but yeah, I can see like connecting your passion about one art and transferring to another.
absolutely.
And when it comes to like, this is gonna be a funny one. When it comes to like engineering rappers, I know you deal with a lot of artists and stuff. Are you picky about who you work with? Because I know some, the big names in the industry now, music industry, they're just working with whatever. Do you work with? Are you picky with who you work with?
So I would say yes, but more so based on I'm picky with the mindsets that I intertwine with.
Mm.
So I don't have to like your music, I don't have to love your music, but it's really about the mindset. Like I've worked with people to where I wasn't a huge fan of their music, but I saw them have the mindset to want to get better.
Mm-hmm.
And like I've literally seen people come in the studio first time trash, and
Right,
within
right.
6 months, like the growth is there, and then they'll go from not knowing what they're doing to kind of getting their footing, and then growing to actually being talented.
Mm.
It's the wildest thing ever.
Right, right, right. I think growth is a big thing when it comes, especially when it comes to people my age, around the millennial Gen Z age, and you said something about you know their mindset. What do you think about the new common music that we listen to now, that young people listen to now? Like, they talk about women the way they do, they talk about guns and stuff like that. What
Right.
do you think with that kind of music?
So I'm not a fan of it.
Yeah.
I think that if we're talking just on an independent level, I think the people that are making that type of music, I think they're looking to what's hot and what's, I guess, deemed as successful mainstream wise, and
Right,
they're kind
right.
of chasing that. Yeah, I'm not a fan of it, man. I think that if you talk about certain topics, um, you should talk about it from a reality based
Right, right.
perspective. Like glorifying uh, disrespecting women and stuff. Yeah, I'm not with it. I'm not a fan.
Mm. I'm actually, like, when it comes to like rappers, I know my age. I feel weird when people my age is like, oh, do you like such and such, talking about the new age rappers,
Yeah, yeah.
whoever is hot now. And every time I tell them that I only listen to one rapper. I mean, if I want to work out and stuff like that, I only listen to one rapper that I think facilitates growth.
Yeah.
And with what you do now, how do you think, can you like get somebody in the booth and they talk about all these stuff that we were just talking about? How can you give them advice, or what advice can you give them to shift away from that type of music to something meaningful, something that they can actually talk about or facilitate growth, like I said?
Right. So I would start off just asking them their why. Like, why do you want to do this? Like,
Right.
why do you want to create? Like, what's your end game? I think that'll be a question that'll kind of get the conversation going. And then furthermore, like, what is your story? Like, who are you? What have you been through?
Mm-hmm.
Aside from those things, yeah, like talk about things that made you who you are, or the things that that inspire you.
Right.
And that can't be all to it.
Right. Right. And that brings me to the main thing that me and my folks really talk about, like the people my age talk about. They always try to make, I feel like they always try to make an excuse for the whatever is hot right now. I feel like they make an excuse to saying that, oh, that's all they know, that's all they lived their whole life, so that's what they're gonna rap about or
Right.
make music about. How can we shift from that kind of mentality to like, dang, it's more to the world. Like, we need to be listening more to whatever that's not even hot. I mean, it can be hot, but can change our mind and can facilitate like good stuff.
Yeah. I agree with you, man.
And I don't know, it's just like, from this city alone, I feel like there's a lot of artists who do the same thing.
Yeah.
So, from your standpoint as a producer, would you be willing to take people in under your wing and stuff like that and advise them to, because you can't ask them to change their lyrics how they
Right.
want to
Right.
change their lyrics, but what is the most positive way that you can contribute to somebody's music and involve how they think and their mindset and stuff like that?
So one thing that I do a lot, and it's very subtle. I'll just I'll recommend certain music.
Mm-hmm.
So if I work with an artist, and like you said, if they're like a drill artist, or they're talking about sliding or whatever type of guns they got,
Yeah.
I'll come and I'll say, hey man, are you a fan of Tupac?
Mm-hmm.
Have you heard this song or that song? Hey man, listen to this, and next time we get in the studio, let's chop it up about it. just subtle things like that. So giving an alternative or giving a different option.
Right, right,
So that's because I never want to come off as like the old guy that's a hater.
right.
So I want to be tactful in the way that I do it. But that's one of the tactics I use quite a bit with the young guys.
Do you feel like, since you're passionate about music and music is a very, very influential thing, do you feel like sometimes you're in a mission to like change how the music industry is now?
Absolutely, absolutely. So I'll preface it by saying not I wouldn't say changing the existing industry, more so, you know, building an industry outside of that. So I'm real big on independence.
Mm-hmm.
You know, record labels, they've served a purpose for so long, and they it has its pros and cons, but I mean, we're in a new time. I think independence is key. I really think that like direct to consumer, building your fan base, who you are, or what your brand is musically, and giving that directly to the audience. You
Mm-hmm.
don't really need a record label per se.
Right,
You need capital,
right,
but there's other avenues to gain capital outside of a record deal. So
right,
that's
right.
just that's my opinion on it.
So you're more so of like trying to provide wisdom and knowledge on how to really navigate through the music industry.
Right, and letting artists know that record labels are not the end all be all. Like
Right,
there's artists that the world doesn't know that make a great living doing their music independently.
independently.
Yeah, it's more so, and I think that's where a lot of the younger artists kind of fall short. Um, Looking at it as a business, like when we're in here and we're creating, that's the fun part.
Right,
But
right.
after that, that's when the real business starts. So to me, music is no different than a real estate business, or if you're opening a restaurant, it's the same thing. You have to look at yourself as a brand.
Mm-hmm.
So outside of just creating the music, you got to have a rollout. You got to have actual marketing and things like that.
So then sometimes people even say that people change. I mean, the music industry, once they make it big,
Yeah, yeah,
the music industry change people. I
right.
don't know if you're uh I don't want to name it. So it's this artist. She made it big, and then all of a sudden she changed her mindset about things, and now she's losing more fans than they could ever think of.
Okay.
And sometimes people tie it up to like the music industry. Once you make it big, is the devil, or even the Illuminati is getting a
Yeah,
hand
yeah.
of them. What do you think when it comes to stuff like that?
Um, as far as like the Illuminati, or
Like Illuminati and the music industry having that kind of effect on other people.
so, I think it's bad people in every industry,
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
and I go back to like you know when you're pursuing anything, it's really about your why. So, for example, if your why is money and only money, then there's really no limit to what you'll do.
Mm-hmm.
So people that have a goal of, okay, I'm gonna get in this particular industry, whatever it may be, and I want to get as much money as possible. The reason that can get tricky is because if that's your goal, then that means you're willing to adapt and change just
Right.
to get said goal.
Right.
That's dangerous in any avenue from my perspective.
Mm. But we do what we do because of money though. So how can we change the perspective of like, man, it's not about the money, it's about the art. Because we can say, I feel like there's a podcast that I watched. We're all a sellout to something that we do. We
Okay.
all do it to get that money that we want. But how do you think we can separate what we're passionate about and trying to make it big? Because after all, I'm just starting from the bottom, and I want to make it big to where it's like I got companies working with me. I got clothes that's fresh enough that I don't even pay for.
Right.
How can we shift from that, or how can we separate the two?
Hmm. Um. So if we just speaking about the money piece, so for me, and this is one thing that really made me, become passionate about entrepreneurship. Um, I think that you can have the same amount of money that you can make from doing two different things. So if I made $100, we'll say cutting grass, and then I made that same $100 doing something like if I painted a picture or a custom picture that I came up with myself, and I sold that picture. To me, that $100 is more valuable than $100 I made raking leaves.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying? So I think that's the difference.
Right, right.
Like if you're in the industry and you just want money just for the sake of money, then that's one thing. However, if you're getting paid from your art, I think that's the big difference.
Mm-hmm.
You know?
And I see what you're talking about. Like with the art piece, you put your time, your
Right, 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 right.
artistic mind to it and all that. But when it comes to like the music industry too, going back to it, I feel like a lot of the big artists that we got now came from unimaginable environments to where, cause like I said, I want to make it big doing what I do.
Right.
They wanted to make it big so they can be in a better environment, and then they got used to like doing the same thing. Now that they're big, now all the youngins that's still in that same environment
Yeah.
is looking up to them,
Right.
trying to do wherever they had going on,
Yeah, yeah.
because they think that they're gonna come up the same way. So mentally, it's difficult because I feel like going back to what we were talking about earlier, that's where the reality sets in to where it's like, man, this all I know.
Yeah.
What would you say? Like, let's say you work with somebody that's big now.
Okay.
Then they still rapping about this stuff. How would you? How would you? I don't want to say. Is there any way that we can justify that type of thing?
Um, I don't think so. I don't think so because at the core, if you're glorifying negativity with, no alternative, I don't think that's justifiable in any way. Some people say, "Oh, it's just entertainment,"
Right.
but is it really? Like you said, if you're affecting the mindsets of people coming behind you, I think that's a problem.
Right. Right.
So I wouldn't say, I wouldn't say it's justifiable.
It's just I feel like it's all a mental stuff,
Right. Absolutely.
and that comes play that it plays a big part with the mental stuff because you got to be mentally strong enough to like know that, oh, I made it to the top. I don't gotta talk about this stuff no more.
Right.
But I feel like it doesn't have to get to the point to where you gotta get to the top to use your platform to start speaking positively. I feel like you can start at the bottom and come up with it. And I feel like that's the problem with the people now that we have, because sure, if their mindset is like, if I don't make it to the league, I won't make it to the NBA, I won't make it to the NFL or whatever league it is, they go with music. If that don't if that don't work, and for you, if music didn't work,
Mm-hmm.
did you ever think about like, what if I tried getting higher education? Like, if all else failed, was that ever like an option for you?
Um. So for me, so I tried school right after high school, and it just wasn't for me, and it's for some people. But when we speak about higher education, just in the audio field, there's so many avenues for
Right,
higher education.
right,
Like whether it's training courses, whether it's they got certain degree programs for specific things. Like you might have audio visual, or you might have just music composition and those type of things.
mm-hmm.
So I definitely have explored those type of things.
People say it wasn't for them. Like, it's college is not all like, not for all people. It's for some people.
Right.
What did that actually mean?
Okay. So when I say that, I noticed right after high school there were a lot of friends of mine that they went to school to try to figure out what they wanted to do.
Right.
For me, I already knew exactly what I wanted to do. So when I say school wasn't for me, that's kind of what I mean. Like, um, once I got in school, okay, I had already had an internship at a recording studio.
Uh huh.
So I was more passionate about that. So nothing against school. It was just that, okay, I'm taking these classes, but it's like, okay, I could be at the studio learning more stuff about what I really want to do.
Mm-hmm.
So, and then back then, there wasn't a lot of avenues. Like now, they have all these production courses and stuff. I wish they had all of that stuff
Right, right.
when I first graduated high school.
You think you would ever get to that level to where it's like you want to teach people how to produce?
Absolutely. And I noticed that about myself in the last couple of years. I'm really passionate about teaching.
Teaching. Yeah.
Absolutely.
I feel like I feel like it would be a big avenue for you to like influence people too. Like you
Yeah.
said, you want to make that shift. I think I would even apply. I mean, not apply, but enroll for your course too, cause
No, that's a great idea.
I do want to learn. I'm passionate about learning new stuff, and yeah, I think it would be fun working with you.
Absolutely, man.
And at the peak of success, you already made. Well, how would you say? Why? What will make you say that I made it?
So for me, I take it back to, when I first got interested in music, just as a kid, how music always affected me, right?
Right.
So since I can remember, like I would hear a certain record and I would be so impacted by this piece of music that I want to know who did everything. Like I
Mm.
want to know who recorded this song. I want to know who wrote the song. I want to know who produced the song. And for me, that that's making it literally. Like if someone discovers me from hearing something that I had my hand in, to
Mm.
me that's like the highest form of making it. It's not
Right.
about
Right.
money. It's about the art reaching people and impacting them. Like it's really that simple for me.
So when it somebody, what do you call that term again? When somebody use your beat and twist it to something else?
You mean like sampling?
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's what you're talking about. Or
That's
directly.
a part of it, but just someone being impacted enough by something to come find me.
Mm. Okay.
Just
Okay.
like if we talk about movies or anything, some people look at movies and they say, "Oh, that was a good movie," but you got other people who look at movies and say, "I want to know who was the director of cinematography. I want to know who did the lighting and
Nah, that
those
would be
type of
crazy.
things." Yeah,
Nah, that would be crazy.
yeah. So and even sampling is a part of it, and it's funny because I was having a conversation with one of my good friends. He's an artist, and he was kind of just stressing about, which we kind of spoke about earlier. He was stressing about not being where he wanted to be or where he felt he should be in his career
Right.
musically.
Right.
And I was explaining to him that just stick with the passion for creating, because I feel like music is most impactful, and you'll hear these stories all the time of someone saying, "Okay, did you know that this song was gonna be this big?" And they was like, "No, I was just doing what I love." You hear
Mm-hmm.
that a lot, and I was explaining to him that there are artists that we've heard that have sampled songs from people that didn't get their flowers while they were here,
Mm-hmm.
and that's a big part of hip hop production.
Right. Right.
Digging in the crates, digging in records. The biggest flex for sampling is finding obscure records that weren't as big.
Right.
But if you're a producer and you find a record, from somebody who maybe only sold a couple thousand copies and they never were a big artist,
Mm-hmm.
if they take that record and then Jay-Z raps over it, now the world hears it.
Exactly.
So that person lives forever.
That would be crazy.
You know?
That would be
Yeah.
crazy. Just to think about that, man. I think now it's being prominent that people sample, like you said,
Yeah.
people sample somebody else's music that never made it, not never made it big, but didn't get as many hits as they wanted to.
Right.
And I think that's crazy. Have you? Who's the biggest artist that you ever worked with?
Biggest artist I ever worked with. Probably, I'll probably say R&B artist Case. This artist, he's a '90s R&B singer.
Mm-hmm.
He's Grammy nominated. He had a lot of hits in the '90s, early 2000s. I wrote 3 songs for him on
That's crazy.
his last album before the one he just dropped.
Yeah, how that made it feel that, dang, I work with this dude that's a that's a Grammys, nominee or something.
Yeah, so it was. it was cool, man. Um, but I will say it's an interesting thing because when we talk about success, when I got that opportunity, I realized that okay, I don't feel any different. Like what I thought I would feel like oh
Right,
man, I
right,
made it.
right.
That went away real quick, and I was like, okay, this is the reality of how the industry works. It
Mm-hmm.
wasn't how I thought it would be. Like, um, okay, you get a phone call and they've chosen your song, and then you get flown out and have this big meeting, and it's like this is what we're gonna do, blah blah blah. No,
Mm-hmm.
it was more. The business part of it was as simple as, hey, we're using your song, we're gonna send over the paperwork, sign it,
That's
scan it,
it.
send it back. Yeah.
Did it feel like you didn't get the recognition that you wanted, or
No, I would say I got the recognition because that got me a lot more work.
right?
So I got the recognition within the industry.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but I know that most people aren't as passionate as me when it comes to you know the work behind the scenes.
Right,
So that's why the passion is so important because working behind the scenes can be a thankless job.
right, right.
Like somebody can be looking at something that you did, and the artist gets the credit of how great it is.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm fine with that.
Right.
Yeah.
It's like they only care about the end,
Right.
the ending.
Yeah, they don't care about what it took to get there.
Right, right.
But I'm fine with that because I'm really passionate about my job.
Have you ever documented yourself like working with an artist? Have you ever documented yourself working with an artist, recording, going through all the process of like before they made the album and then released it?
Yeah, yeah, I've done definitely a lot of behind the scenes footage.
That's what I think. Cause I be watching my good friends behind the scenes. I think that's great too, and it definitely catches your whole studio. And I think that's a big thing. You basically said that you wish people cared about more, what's behind the scenes. But what's the most enjoyable moment for you for you when it comes to like working with artists behind the scenes? What's the most, if that makes sense?
The most enjoyable thing, honestly, I would say the most rewarding thing is probably once a piece of music, it might be one song or a full project. Once it's complete, and I see that an artist is comfortable and they're actually happy with what they created, like
Mm.
that brings me fulfillment. Yeah. And another big one for me is, I get clients all the time that come in. They might have had bad experiences at other studios, or it might be their first time. The excitement that they have once they hear themselves back, that's
Mm.
like super fulfilling for me.
And when it comes to like you said, people have bad experiences with other studio. Do you ever feel like you're competing with other producers or?
Uh, Not so much. I wouldn't say I'm competing with other producers, but I'm kind of just doing things the way in which I do them, and just finding the artist that my work ethic fits.
Mm-hmm.
Because you have to, when you're doing music or when you're creating, you have to find the people that you mesh well with. So
Mm.
I wouldn't say I'm competing. It's just about finding the right person. I often I often use the parallel between barbers and engineers. Like to me, it's the same thing.
Right,
Certain people have certain styles and how they cut hair.
right.
So in the music field, it's the same thing.
It's sure to be hard getting a barber.
You know,
Like
you know.
it's they're not gonna get it right. I feel like yeah, man, that reminded me of so many times that I got my hair cut and they wouldn't get it right.
Yes,
So I feel what you're
it's the
saying.
same thing with a certain person being hired to mix a record. You might not be bad at mixing. You're just not the right choice for this particular record.
Exactly.
Same thing with you might be a fire barber, but this particular style of hair or the haircut that they like, you might not just be great at it,
Right,
and that's
right,
okay.
right. And for you now, what's the next big thing that people should look out for? Like, which I would say, what's the biggest thing that you're working with right now, or you're working
So
for?
I'm doing a lot of music for television, a lot of like behind the scenes stuff, like scoring for films. I'm doing some work with like just sound beds and television shows like theme music and things like that.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm working on a lot of those type of things right now. Hopefully, all solidifies and
Where can we see that when that get produced?
so once they give me the call and it's been solidified, then I'll know for
Okay.
sure. And that's the thing about the industry too. A lot of times you work on a lot of stuff and it may take a while to materialize.
Right.
So
And that's definitely something to look out for. Man, you gotta celebrate for that.
no, absolutely, absolutely.